Hi everyone, welcome to math. I'm so glad to have you guys with me right now. So we have been learning about graphing in math. So let's get started. So we have some comprehension questions that you can be thinking about as we go through the lesson. Think about what graphs provide us with. Some graphs use pictures and other graphs use blank. A graph shows one person has a cat, 4 people have a dog. Which is there the most of? So these are just some different things to think of. Now, if you want to pause this and then go into BrainPop Junior, which is a different website, and you're going to type in the username, which is MetroBP, with the password of BrainPop. You want to search bar graphs or graphing, and you will come up with this picture that you see here. And it's going to be a short video about graphing. It'll give us some more information about that. And that'll be considered what's called our anticipatory set. Once your child has listened to that, please them and ask them to make a prediction based off of what they heard or saw. An example of our prediction for this particular lesson is, what do you think you're going to be learning about in math today? Do you think you're going to be learning about a flower, or do you think you're going to be learning about graphing? So again, once you've made your prediction or your child's made your prediction, we can move on here. Next, we always have a repeated storyline. So our repeated storyline for this story is graphs provide information. So that is something that our kids are going to hear throughout the lesson today. All right, guys, let's get started with our vocabulary. So what are graphs? Graphs are drawings or figures that show data in a clear way. An example of a graph is a bar graph. And a bar graph is a graph that uses rectangles and numbers to show data. We're going to learn more about some bar graphs. Data, what is this data we're talking about? It's going to be the information we're putting into a graph. We can also interpret that data to gather information. Another example of a graph is a picture graph. A picture graph uses pictures to show data. The story we're going to read today is called Graphing. Let's get to reading our story. At the garden center. Miguel's family owns a garden center. He is going to survey the shoppers. He will ask them questions. He wants to count the plants people buy. He wants to find out if people buy more bushes, trees, or flowers. Here's Miguel. Again, what are we doing? Graphs provide us with information. Counting plants. Miguel gets answers to a survey. The answers are called data. The data shows what kind of plants people bought. He writes down what people buy. Look at the answers Miguel collected. How can he make a graph with these answers? Remember, a graph is a drawing that shows the relationship between different things. So let's look what he has here. So we know there are 4 customers. There's a Mrs. Jones, a Mr. Carson, a Dr. Lynn, and Miss Becker. Let's take a look at Mrs. Jones. She bought 4 bushes, while Mr. Carson bought 4 flowers and 2 bushes. Dr. Lynn bought 2 trees and 7 flowers. Miss Becker bought 1 tree and 2 bushes. And again, there's our repeated storyline. Graphs provide information. So what are we going to do with this information that we now have? Let's find out. Picture graph. Miguel decides to make a picture graph. A picture graph has pictures that stand for numbers. Miguel uses pictures of flowers, bushes, and trees. Picture graphs have titles. The title of Miguel's graph is Number of Plants People Bought. Picture graphs have labels. So we have our picture symbols here. We have a picture of a flower, a bush, and a tree, which represents the information we're talking about in our graphs, because graphs provide information. So here's an example of a picture graph. And again, up here is our title, Number of Plants People Bought. How many bushes did people buy? The graph shows 8 pictures of bushes. That means that people bought 8 bushes. So they may have bought 8 bushes, but let's think about how many flowers did they buy? How many trees did they buy? So if we clap 3 times, 1, 2, 3, that can also represent how many trees were purchased versus the 8 bushes. And it looks like more flowers were even purchased. I think it was 11. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Move the page up here a little bit, guys. 10, 11. We have our flowers, our trees, and our bushes. Let's work on this a little bit more. So the garden center has bags of soil and wood chips. It has watering cans. It sells tools like shovels. Miguel watches to see who buys watering cans. He sees who buys bags of wood, chips, or soil. He counts the number of tools that are sold. So we're still in the garden center, guys, but now we're looking at other things that the people bought. And people may be buying these things now since it's springtime. So Mr. Dodson purchased 1 watering can, 4 bags of wood chips or soil. While Miss Green, she purchased 3 tools, 6 bags of wood chips or soil. Mrs. Solis purchased 2 bags of wood chips or soil. And Mr. Ross purchased 1 watering can. And again, graphs are providing us with information. Another way to display this information is with a bar graph. So Miguel does not want to draw pictures this time. So he makes a bar graph. A bar graph has rectangles of different lengths. The length of the rectangle stands for different numbers. A bar graph also has a straight line called an axis. Remember, guys, what are graphs providing us with? It's right here. They're providing us with information. So let's take a look at this graph. We have our title up here, what people bought. We have our axis. Looks like it goes up to, it's counted up to 12. So that's our quantity. And here's our items. We have watering cans, bags, and tools. Miguel names the bar graph next, reads its bottom and top, then looks at the numbers on the left. How many watering cans did people buy? So let's check out the watering cans, represented in purple in a bar graph. So if we go over, here's the water cans, and we're going to go up 1, 2. So evidently, 2 watering cans were purchased. But if we look at bags, I believe that was bags of soil, there's a lot more of that. 12 bags were purchased. So 12 people bought 12 bags. Or let me restate that, sorry. 12 bags of soil were purchased. But we have one other item, tools. When we look at our tools, it's a little bit less than our bags, but a little bit more than our watering cans. Our tools go up to 1, 2, 3. This looks like a total of 3 tools were purchased. So this is how we're gathering our data and our information from our graphs. Because again, graphs provide us with information. There's a lot more we can do with these graphs, but this is a good review of what we've been learning about with our graphs. Now it's time for some questions. So whenever I have questions, we want to think about our steps to critical thinking and problem solving. What do we have to do? First, we have to listen to the question, and we listen with our ears. We listen to all our answer choices. We think about your choices. Then we answer the question by choosing one of the answer choices. So with all these things you're doing, you're also problem solving, you're thinking creatively and critically. So I want you to use all of these skills and show your family what you can do. So let's look at this first question here. Graphs provide us with, and there's 3 choices, a house, information, or bathtub. Think about that for a minute. And then do your absolute best to provide an answer. So the next question is, some graphs use pictures and other graphs use, do we hear rectangles, starfish, or robot? Now that one's a little tricky, but if you go back to the text, you will see it in there, I promise. All right, so let's practice a graph. So we have a graph and it shows one person has a cat. Some of you guys might have a cat at home. The graph also shows that 4 people have a dog. So if you think of 1 cat and 4 dogs, which is there the most of? Are there more cats, more dogs, or more birds? So think about that for a second. And then again, just do your best to answer the question. Here's another graphing question to think about. A graph shows 1 person ate pizza, 4 people ate salad. Which was eaten the least? So think about that. Remember, we're focusing on least or less. We have 1 person who ate pizza and 4 people who ate salad. Salad, pizza, or fruit cocktail, which is the answer? Okay, now that I've given you guys some time to kind of think through that, let's just review our answers. So if we go up here to the first one, graphs provide us with information, and that was one part of our repeated storyline. Some graphs use pictures, and other graphs use rectangles to be the answer to that. And again, I know that one's a little bit tricky, so we may revise that one next year, but if you go back to the text, the answer was rectangle. For our first graphing question, a graph shows a person has 1 cat and 4 people have a dog. Which is there the most of? So another way to think about this is looking at a number line, or holding your fingers up, 1 and 4, which is the most? And in this case, it would be the dog. Very last one, guys. A graph shows 1 person ate pizza, 4 people ate salad. Which was eaten the least? So again, if we have 1 person that ate pizza and 4 people that ate salad, think about your thinking about the less or least amount. In this case, it would be the pizza of 1. All right, so how can we connect this to our home, our community, and our world? So at home, how can we use graphs? Let's think about this. So we could graph the ages of people in our family. We could graph how many cats, dogs, fish, birds that you may have in your family or your friends may have. One way you can connect it to our community, a connection to our community for graphing could be you could graph the weather. What's the weather in, say, I don't know, Charlotte, Matthews, and Denver? There's 3 different areas. You could graph the weather for a few days and see what you find. Is the weather the same in all places? Versus maybe you're looking at temperature, or maybe you're looking whether it's sunny or rainy. Some different ways to think about it. What is our connection for around the world? There's many different graphs we can do around the world. What are some of those? So you could also graph the weather around the world. You could graph, there's lots of things. But you could graph the weather. You could graph people's interest. You could graph lots of different things. So think on that and think of some different ways that you can connect graphing to your daily life. We'd love to see some of your thoughts on what you're doing and what you can do with graphing. Think about how you could do graphing with your family, especially while you're at home. Thank you guys very much for your time. Hope you're all doing well, and I'm sure you did great with your math lesson. Thank you.